Welcome to this video. Tried to do a live feed, but my internet will not connect. The range is not quite where it needs to be. Probably can tell why. It's a beautiful beach, a little bit isolated, a little bit outside of the main city. It's beautiful. This is the interesting thing about contrast. Yeah. So we look at this. We look at the pristine nature of what is behind me, and then as we move, the beach is so beautiful, yet it's littered with rubbish. So much rubbish. It is quite interesting to see, quite interesting to be exposed to. And this is the contrast, the polarity that we live in. There's some young kids there behind me playing soccer, but amongst the rubbish. So this video, this very short video that I wanted to do as a live feed, is really about space, creating space and stillness. And space and stillness is king. To be a clear man, to be a man of purpose, to be a man of sincerity, to be a man where one is connected fully to themselves and of course fully to who they are and how they move through the world. We have to create space for ourselves, and it's actually an act of reverence, an act of deep respect, an act of honoring self, but also honoring those that are in our lives. And when we're able to do that, we come from a place of openness and sincerity, and it's really quite beautiful, endearing, and connected. It's powerful, in fact. So how do we create space for ourselves? Well, it's interesting. We create space by isolation, by creating silence, by being still. So we begin because it's easy, because physically, when we are able to create stillness in our physical environment, we are able to then transmute that into our inner being. It almost gives us permission. It allows us, it gives us a reference point for, wow, okay, this is actually possible. So how do we create stillness in our world? Well, we take ourselves to places where there are not so many people, not so much hustle and bustle. We take ourselves away from routine. We digitally detox. A bit of an oxymoron as I'm holding my phone here, digital device. But we are able to create space in our lives outside of our norm, outside of the routine, outside of what we are accustomed to. And when we do that, we really change the context by which we live, and we are granted a very new and different perspective in life. And that perspective gives us insight into who we are, it gives us insight into our values, our purpose, what is important to us, what we like, what we dislike, where we want to go, what we wish to do, who we wish to be, what we wish to embody. Space gives us a reference point for evolving ourselves, for growth. That's what it does. So we create space firstly by looking at our physical environment. We create space firstly by creating silence and stillness in our physical environment. Shutting down the noise, the hustle and bustle, get back to nature, get back to being connected to what is natural, what is organic, what is where we thrive, an environment where we thrive. And in doing so, we really expand the fullness of who we are. We are able to tap into areas of self that we never knew existed. It's like, and I've said this before and I heard this from someone, it's like the creator or the universe or higher consciousness or Godhead or whatever your own higher self, whatever you wish to call that or label that being, that thing, that entity, that presence, that essence said, where can I hide the secrets of the universe? Because not everybody is ready for complete and ultimate truth, for authentic revealing of self. And in that, it was said that, well, if I hide it in space, in stillness, in silence, in the quietness of life, in the quietness of mind, in the quietness of being, there all secrets will be revealed, all secrets will be unraveled, all secrets to self, to unpacking self, to understanding self, to connecting to self will be opened up. And that's quite powerful. And when we create the space for ourselves, we're actually giving to ourselves, we're actually giving to who we are, we're actually giving to what we value most, which is ourselves. When we acknowledge that and recognize that, life changes for us. We begin to prioritize life and the elements of life, the relationships in our lives, and of course, the relationship that we have to self very differently. And in doing so, we grow. And in that growth, we release. And in that release, not only do we realize that we are worth more, far more than what we thought we were, but we begin to act in accordance with that worth and with that value. And that's a game changer for how our relationships are conducted. No more as men are we to show up as meek human beings, disorientated, disconnected, disenchanted, disenfranchised, not understanding self, not being connected to self, not really knowing self, not being self-aware, not having consciousness around who we truly are and what we want, therefore being very indecisive, therefore not having clarity, therefore not being clear on who we are and what we want. And when we make choices from a place of fear and doubt and confusion, and that's bullshit. That doesn't work for anybody. It doesn't work for us, for our life, for our life's purpose, for our life's path. It doesn't work for those that are in our lives. It does not work for how we wish to live life. So creating space can be a tremendous tool and a gift, in fact, for our own growth, but also for our own realizations, our self-realizations, our self-awareness, our evolved state of consciousness, and how we actually choose to then move through life. Because again, I come back to that perspective, to that context. That space gives us a deeper understanding of who we are. When we create that inner space, that tranquility, that inner space within, we begin to really grow. We begin to come into the fullness of ourselves, and this can be quite scary. It can be quite fearful. It can let others down. It can distance others from us. And when people don't understand us, we feel like we are misunderstood, of course, and we feel that we are then losing our social circles, we are losing what is valuable to us, we are losing what is important, and we cultivate more fear. So the ego says, well, let's just go back to what we know, let's go back to what is comfortable, let's go back to what we are familiar with, because what we are familiar with is what works. But it doesn't really work. It leaves us in a place of stagnation, it leaves us in a place of weakness, disconnection. But what does work is clarity. And we find clarity, one of the many ways we find clarity is through creating space, silence, stillness and self. That could come in the form of meditation, that could come in the form of spending time on one's own, with their own thoughts, with their own feelings, with their own self, to gain clarity on purpose and then execute and act in that purpose, purposefulness of who we are. And that's power, that's authentic power for us, it's authentic power for who we are, for the people in our lives. And really we are giving a service to those that are in our lives when we are able to live on and in purpose, when we are able to live with clarity by creating space and stillness. And it's a regular act. And when we do this, when we engage in this regular act of giving to self through stillness and space and clarity, what we're actually doing is honoring self. As men, we are honoring self in this world, this path that we are treading. And the Reclaim Your Kingdom program, this 3-month online immersive intensive journey where we meet once a week online as conscious, healthy men, we begin to cultivate a personal practice of what it means to be still and in silence. Because instead of reacting in life, we then begin to respond to and with life. We begin to respond to and with our relationships instead of being reactive and coming from a place of fear and doubt and confusion and immense pain. We begin to know ourselves through space and through stillness and through clarity. And in that silence, we really acquaint ourselves with the deepest aspects of who we are, and that's a beautiful thing. If this interests you, click the link above in the title. If this interests you, connect to this. Peruse, browse, explore. Exploration is a key tenet of the Conscious Warrior model. There's 12 key principles. Exploration, self-exploration, exploration of the inner and outer world is one of those key tenets. And we explore this and the 11 other tenets in the Reclaim Your Kingdom model as well. So I urge you, whatever you do, take time every week, every day to create space for yourself, to create silence and stillness where you can connect to the truth of who you are, to know yourself, to understand yourself. When you do that, you grow. When you do that, you thrive. And when you do that, everything in your life becomes enriched. Many blessings on your journey. ReclaimYourKingdom.com. I'll see you there.